Welcome back to another episode of Full Metal RPG. We are on Season 3, Episode 2. I am your host, Ashley, and I am joined today with my co-hosts. We've got Darrel. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's very dark. My space background that's normally here, I am now in the vacuum of space. It's just dark. So, yes. And we are also joined by Richie motherfucking Buzzkill. How are you doing, RBK?
I'm doing pretty good. I had some interesting adventures today, so we'll talk about that here in a second.
Ooh, I am excited to hear about them. Actually, just go ahead.
All right. Well, so Chris Kohler from Slow Death Games showed up in the Greater Phoenix area. We Brendan and it's
no warning. Just come into town. Don't even let me take you to dinner. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, Brendan, invited me, I guess, because we were talking. I accidentally knew that he was gonna be here. Anyways, so we went and did some Mexican food, and then went to 2 game stores. So finally got to visit the new game store, Guild of Gamers.
Yeah.
Gamers Guild. Gamers Guild.
Yes.
I was thinking of your group on Facebook, joining your group on Facebook. And there's a very interesting store. It's one of these newer stores that's opening up that's all about kind of sort of like belonging to a gym where you pay a monthly subscription fee to use their rooms. Mm-hmm. And the rooms are really nice. Like they had some rooms that had like some really cool, like, I think one had artificial grass on the walls or something like that with a TV, which is an interesting choice. But it had like some those bulbs that look like torches all over the place. Did you
do the tour? Like where they explain everything?
They actually had a lot of people there, so they did not have time to give the newbie a tour.
Well, each of those rooms are based off of elements. And so they have like the earth room. So that was what that one was. And the screen is there for gaming so that you can either set up to do streaming out of it or something like that. So yeah, it's actually awesome the way they have them set up, but go ahead.
But they had like, I thought it was, we kind of wandered around. Brendan, I think, had the tour before. And they have a amazing library of even painted miniatures you can use. So like, it was an interesting idea. It was like, I think the lowest membership was like $30 a month. And then my eyes crossed when it said $175 a month and I just couldn't read. I couldn't read the rest of that because my eyes went, because I'm like, I'm sure it was like a family membership or household membership or something like that. But I just couldn't get it through my brain. I know that this is the future. Like the future is paying for like a gym membership to a place so you can play in public, kind of semi-public. But like but they had a great selection of stuff and the lighting was great. It was clean. Obviously it's a new store, but they had a great selection, clean. It was a very nice place.
Yeah.
And I appreciate their code of conduct is amazing. And from what I understand from regulars who've been going there, it's really well enforced. So,
well, that's good. That's good. I saw some people I hadn't seen in a while. Richard Marshall, got Shane. I saw some people like doing a painting class. There were people playing Magic, people playing Marvel Protocol or whatever. And then we went over to Games U, and I picked up Cults of the Blood Gods, the new Vampire 5th edition role-playing book. Other than the fact that I wanted it, the reason I want this book is because it proves we are canon in the world of darkness. So our
waiting for this.
Brendan Carrion is in this book on page
down a little further,
down a little bit more,
193. He's in there, and you can see.
I can see his tie down. Yeah,
you can see the
shirt.
classic Full Metal RPG T-shirt is in a World of Darkness 5th edition vampire book.
Oh yes,
we are canon, motherfuckers.
Yes, that's amazing.
So that's a Mark Kelly, I believe, but it's an amazing picture, and I'm very proud to be a part of that, even tangentially. And I'm excited to look through this book a little bit more and look at some other things. And just as a note, in the old days, this would have been a polybagged book because there are female nipples in it. But that's thankfully we are progressive enough now to not have to have our books polybagged. So
we can have Brendan's face and female nipples in the same book.
Yeah, normally that would have had a sticker. Brendan's face would have had a sticker over it as a NSFW, like not safe for work. Just sticker right over that. Like there have been protests and burning of books for this particular one. But never mind all the interesting and weird and evil things that happen in cults for blood gods. Never mind all that. The female nipple was only invented in like 1955 as a way to disturb men in their in their ways. So this is I'm glad that we're moving forward a little bit here and able to have some books on the shelf but Games U was the only place we actually found it on the shelf. So we bought like 2 of the 3 that were sitting there. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool.
So that was a fun romp today. We had a lot of fun, conversations, and ends up being half about business when you're around business partners. So like,
yeah.
So that was my fun romp today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Gamers Guild's been awesome. I've still never been in Games U somehow, even though I live like right down the road from it.
And you work? Yeah, never mind.
And I work even closer. Yes. Yeah. Somehow I've never made it in, so I want to. Haven't done it yet, but I have been to Gamers Guild, and it's pretty cool. I like it there a lot.
And Jeff, the owner of Games U, has figured out kind of call it chud shielding. So he put up a Black Lives Matter flag and the rainbow flag on the wall, like giant flags behind the register. And they've apparently definitely seen people who have walked in, taken one look, and walked right back out. So chud shielding tips for the game store owners out there that want to prevent the chuds: start advertising.
Well, there's that, and a huge shout out to Jeff and also to Darren at IO. Just enforcing policies and being on the ball with it is such a huge difference. So it's another reason to love Gamers Guild as well, because they're apparently on the ball too. So
yeah, that's awesome. Definitely support all of those stores. They're great. So yes, Darrel, what are you up to? What have you been up to lately?
We've been rocking the Vampire the Requiem game and having a lot of fun. COVID has thrown a monkey wrench once again into our works, so
it's coming
tomorrow night's
back.
session is going to be working out our online presence and trying to make sure everybody's up to speed on that before we get back into what we're going to do with 5 staked vampires who are going to be gifted to the Prince of the City. We'll see if that goes over well or not. But yeah, other than that, big thing this weekend was just helping my son move up to Flagstaff. And I was all excited because he originally told me he was going to leave me all of his Dungeons and Dragons books. And I was like, okay, cool. And he's like, yeah, we've got our own copies up there. And then at the last minute, he threw them all in the car and took them. So I am now 100% D&D free in the house, and I'm kind of sad about it. So
that was what that single tier was for.
Yeah, my youngest son has decided to join the D&D club tomorrow at school, so we're gonna have to start buying books all over again. Oh my god!
It's an expensive hobby when it's just you, let alone when you have like minions that you also have to buy all of the books for.
Well, and Gabe got Pokemon Syndrome where he wanted all of them except for the like 2 that I wanted, so we just kept buying for him, and then he stole them. But in the realm of expensive D&D books, I was up in Flagstaff looking at Bookman's up there, and they had the AD&D Monster Manual, Player's Manual, and DM Guide and it made my heart so happy. And they were just sitting on the shelf. Like usually you see those behind glass now because they don't want people thumbing through them and damaging the books. But oh, it was so good, and I was so proud to like crack it open. I showed Xavier the invisible. That there's a picture next to every most monsters have a picture next to them, and then there's the invisible with nothing, just gone.
It's one of my favorites. Invisible. But did you grab any of them?
No, they wanted $60 for the monster manual because that's the one that was the first book I ever got as a kid. Yeah. And I love the art and I love the descriptions. I was flicking through it and just looking at some of the cool monster descriptions. And then I looked at the price and I'm like $60 for nostalgia because I'm never going to use those. I started looking at the stat tables for the Iraketh, I think it was, and I'm like, holy crap, nope. I remember all of this. I'm having PTSD flashbacks to math class.
Right. Well, I can let you borrow my copy if you want. If you want a nostalgia trip out for like an evening, like I'll let you borrow my copy of the second edition. I think I have the AD&D one. I have
Well, I know you do because that's the dude with they're prying the jewel out of the idol's eye and all that.
Yeah.
I have favorite pieces of art, I think, right?
Yes, and even so much so that I went ahead and printed out he's been working out for 30 years.
Yeah.
But I printed him out and then painted him and then actually put real rubies in his eyes. So those are real rubies, but it's funny you can buy real rubies off of eBay for like a couple bucks. Anyways,
fantastic. But so that's been my adventures, is trying to make the shift back into Cyberland once again. I didn't really get on that train during the first wave or the second wave, but it's caught up to me. So we'll make it work because gaming is important. Hanging out with buds is important.
Yes.
And so we'll figure it out and do it. But that's what I've been doing.
Speaking of buds, Chuck Tingle, when you were talking about monster manuals, did you ever look at the Tingleverse books? Did you either get a hit?
I have almost all of them on my shelf.
I do too. I bought all of them, and as they came out, I kept buying them. So I want to run them at some point. I do. Darrel, you'll have to look at them. They're amazing. But there is like a monster manual for the Tingleverse, and it's incredible. It's so good.
So I'm going to propose, and let us know. Send us messages in all the places if you want a Chuck Tingleverse actual play.
Yeah.
Let us know, and we'll put that as a goal on the Patreon.
Yes. I would totally
because I think that would be worth our time once we get to a certain level. And show notes, we will update the thing soon. It just takes time to get us in same virtual space at the same time. Anyway, but I would propose, if anyone's interested, like shout us out. Like I will add that to the list of weird goals, because I plan on having some real weird shit on there and see if anybody bites. So.
Yeah. Nice. I would totally be into a Tingleverse campaign. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So that was very good. Speaking of COVID, I actually had an exposure a couple weeks ago and it was actually the Avalon training. So when we had our NPC training for Avalon, we got an email that someone there had tested positive. So speaking to the efficacy of the vaccines, I tested negative. And I was in direct contact with this person. So, yay vaccines, yay science.
Yay science.
Yay science. So that was cool to be able to test that out, I guess. But that, and then just a whole bunch of the Delta. I keep wanting to say the Delta. So that's Star Trek. So the Delta variant and everything with it coming back. A lot of people are going back online. It's getting bad again. So,
yes.
And that sucks. I hate it. But the vaccines work, so that's exciting. But Avalon has been postponed. So I'm bummed about that. But we were going to be doing it in September, and now it's gotten pushed back to March. So
that's disappointing, but understandable. Hopefully it's not on the same weekend as Arizona Game Fair. Hopefully they check that.
Yeah. What weekend is Arizona Game Fair, do you know?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to. I'm a bad organizer because it's just always been so distant that now we're 6 months away, and I'm like, oh yeah, I should really have that on the top of my spiel. I remember the old soft shoe we used to do, Darrel?
Oh yeah. No, just try and figure out what time to start the whole ball rolling.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm actually going to be on the Star Trek cruise, so I won't be able to play my wizard. So I'm pretty bummed about that. Yeah. I was like, So anyway, but
you still can. You can be a wizard on the cruise.
I totally am. I'm going to bring all of my wizard stuff, and I'm going to walk around on the cruise being a
March
wizard.
March 10th through the 13th, 2022. Oh, yeah, okay. Cruise time, huh?
Yep.
Or Avalon.
No, we'll be back for that. Avalon is the weekend before. It's
okay,
the first
good.
Weekend in March.
Good.
Okay, that works nicely. Yeah, because I'll be back from the cruise by then, so I'll be at Game Fair.
Hopefully,
cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Excellent.
So yes, yeah. And then last week I did. This is not game related at all, but I got to go on my real life adventure. I got to go on a dive trip to Mexico, so that was exciting. So
nice.
That's what I've been up to. Other than Tiny Supers, we are starting our campaign, the Gallantverse campaign, on the Gallant Night Games channel. This Thursday is when we're going to be doing our first episode, so I'm pretty excited about that as well. So, yes.
Awesome. That's sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm hoping to enjoy some of it as soon as I can.
Yeah. And we got the character art because Nicholas Giacandino, I can't pronounce his last name, but he's the one who does all of Alan's artwork for the different books that he does. And he's doing all the character artwork just like he did for Yukon Dark. So we got like the samples back this week, and we got to look at what our characters are going to look like, and it was so exciting. So yeah. Anyway, so that's awesome. So before we get into the actual topic for the show, a couple announcements. First off, we are trying out a new schedule we want to be consistent with when we're going to be doing the show. Right now, what we're trying out is 8 p.m. Arizona time every other Sunday. We're going to be doing the pre-show, and then we're going to start the actual show at 8:30 p.m. Arizona time, which is Pacific Daylight.
Yes.
We change because we stay the same.
Right. Arizona is funny in the fact that we stay exactly where and everybody else changes around us. So we just have to try to make the best of the situation.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to be doing. But we're streaming live on the Twitch channel, which if you're here watching us, it's twitch.tv/Fullmetalrpgofficial. So if you wanted to join us every other Sunday at 8 p.m. for the pre-show, 8:30 p.m. Arizona time, that's when we will be recording. The podcast is going to be released the following Wednesday, and the patrons get the pre-show exclusively and the show early. So if you are not here and you're a patron, you get the pre-show where we talk about pineapples and or whatever other awkward conversation topic we can come up with. Yeah. So also big thanks to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys so much. Thank you for supporting us. We appreciate it so much. And a couple shout outs that Richard had, if you wanted to.
I'm going to shout out like all our most recent patrons. We got The Show. What up? You know, The Show.
The Show.
And then we got my good friend, Big Woodfin. And then we got Patrick Sandoval. I had a thing, but I can't win them all. And we got Eric Soft G, Real G right there, and then Chris Osborne. But you two can keep us, get Darrel a better camera.
Thank you. Yes.
Get Darrel a better camera. Keep us motivated, because it's really not about money. Because if it was about money, we probably wouldn't be doing this, because it costs way more money than
I can sell.
Yeah. It costs way more money. It's about keeping us motivated, because without the patrons keeping us alive, keeping us, their love, well, even if you can just give us $1 a month, and when we redo this the Patreon, the $1 level is going to be our kind of like big tent level, but it's going to be, you're going to get all the kind of exclusives, and there might be I have some other ideas, like being able to like set topics at higher amounts, or even advertise or get an auto shout out every episode at certain levels. So we are not necessarily game writers like Brendan and Adam were. And that was a lot of what was around the Patreon was built upon them trying to give away their writings for free. We're going to try and come up with interesting things like, I don't know, Chuck Tingleverse actual plays. We're going to be a bit more specific and have a bunch more goals. So hopefully you can come be a part of our Patreon, and if you'd buy us a beer, like, you can just give us $1 a month, and that would be amazing. Yeah, it would be cheaper for at least 7 months now, because a beer's like $7 now, which is just ridiculous. Right. So
yes, and I'll write you something. That's fine. We can make that a Patreon.
Yeah, if
I'll write you something. Totally.
Right. Yeah,
Richard, you and I have a million one sheet games in the works.
That's true. We could
do one.
Yeah, we could do one of those. I mean, or we keep talking about doing our story workshops. We can do kind of story workshops, or even have story workshops with patrons as kind of a hangout thing. So we're available all over the place, but somewhat reclusive, I guess, in some ways. So maybe draw us out, or tell us what you think. So if you want something, let us know. We may work it in. So we're in the middle of reorganizing all that. So, but thank you.
Yes, thank you. Also, we talked about it a little bit during the pre-show, but if there are any patrons who want to give us a topic to talk about, if there's something where you're like, I wonder what your thoughts are on this, but it's not really RPG related or anything like that, let us know, and we can talk about that in the pre-show. That's going to be an exclusive to our patrons as well.
Yes, and I will be figuring out how to give the patrons the audio right to their RSS into their favorite pod catcher. So as soon as I figure that out, get that all worked out and how to do that, then I'll turn that on, and then you can automatically get the pre-show right in your feed. So we'll get that worked out. But it's an exciting time, but it's also a lot of work. So we'll get there.
Yes, or hard at work to try and do all sorts of things to make sure that you know how much we appreciate you. So thank you so much for that. All right. So, and with that, we will get into the topic for the show tonight. Our topic tonight is going to be hanging up the dice bag. Why would you retire from RPGs? Or would you? This show actually came up because I misunderstood the homework on a topic that we had done last season.
Me
Richard
being mysteriously leaving things up in the air because just at a title. It's totally me that I don't. We didn't do show notes. That wasn't a thing, or any kind of notes at all. Like, it was very seat of the pants. And if you talk in paragraphs like Brendan, you can get away with that. So,
so I had a 1-sentence thing that I took one way and everyone else took the other way. So I had to think real fast to be able to do that. But this has always been sitting in the back of my head because I had all of my show notes prepared for this topic. So it's retiring from RPGs, hanging up the dice bag. It's something that has kind of come up a lot recently because there are some people who are getting out of the gaming scene. So just why would you do that? And what would you do instead? Things like that. So Richard, what are your thoughts? Would you ever retire from gaming, or do you think you are a lifer? Do you think you're in it for the long haul?
I would say that, I can't say for sure that I'd never retire from gaming. But what I would say is there have been points in being part of public gaming that I have definitely lost sleep and or considered completely burning my going out in public and gaming thing. There have been times when and I can certainly feel like if there was gamer drama to the level of that in my private gaming life, that I could maybe consider it, but I just think and talk about this so much. I just do not know how I could stop. Like it's just there's a lot of things I can stop, but I don't know. There's a reason we continued this show is like I can't stop talking about this, so we might as well record it and give it to people. Like so. Anyway,
it's just so ingrained and infiltrated into your entire life that there's no way to separate the RBK from the RPG.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Darrel? Do you think there is a time that you would ever want to quit RPGs?
Well, I mean, I've told the story a million times. I did. I was out for so long until the Wrecking Crew pulled me back in. And so I can say that none of those problems exist because now I run my own games and don't have to deal with horrible GMs. And seriously, it's an overwhelming hobby at times, and I totally get what Richard's saying about sometimes the community can build us up, and sometimes the community can really suck your energy dry. But like I mentioned in the pre-show stuff, is that my kids are getting into it. My son Gabe runs prolifically, and now that Xavier, he's 12 and wants to run, I don't think I can give up on it yet. I think I've got to keep going and keep it alive for them. He's actually listening to the show now and getting all excited. So, man, it's cool. So as long as there are kids out there who want to play, I'm going to be that weird old dude at the convention. I'm hoping someday to be the Ken St. Andre. I won't write my own game and be famous for that. But
be politically more correct, yes.
Yeah, sitting down at a table and just telling kids the stories of the days of yore,
When you actually has to roll dice by hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. We didn't have an app on our phone. We had to roll it by hand. We had actual math rocks, click clacks that we had to throw. Yes.
We didn't have this like ocular implant that made the vision in your head. We had to imagine it. And
yes.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It'll be interesting to see where it goes. So yeah, just for the fact that I'm interested in seeing where it goes and promoting this for the next 10 generations, I don't think I could ever give up at this point.
Yeah, you got pulled out of retirement just to make sure the next generation is coming up right.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's awesome. That's actually a really good point on why you would stay in it, is just to see where it goes, because the gaming community and just the games that are out there are always evolving. Like D&D was the big hotness for a long time, and then it seems like PBTA for the past, 5-6 years, maybe longer, have been really kind of taking over for that. I mean, D&D is always going to be this juggernaut, right? But just what comes next. Like, I can see why someone would want to stick around just simply for the fact of seeing what kind of game is going to come next and what they're going to redo. How many more cyberpunks are we going to get? Things like that. So, yes. Yeah. And also, to Darrel's point, just life getting in the way is honestly the only thing I could think of is why I would quit, because it can be overwhelming. I'm in 4 or 5 weekly campaigns or semi-weekly. So with something like that, I mean, it is my life right now. That's pretty much what I do. So like that kind of leads into burnout, which is, I think, a big reason why a lot of the people that I've talked to that have retired, it's from burnout. They just get to the point where they're like, I just need to stop, So when it gets to the point where it's taking over your life, what are you going to do with that? So Richard, do you feel like it's ever gotten to the point where, well, it is your life, but do you ever feel like it's too much of your life, or do you feel like it's the right amount of your life?
There is times when I'm like, I start going, like, laying out my week, because for the wife, I'm laying out like what's going on. And I'm like, well, okay, so, and this is truly my schedule right now. So I've got my Thursday game with Brendan. I've got my Friday game with my college kind of roommate guys that we've been playing for a while, and then I got my Saturday night game with my high school chums, and then I've got there was a time when I had Sunday games, and then there was the occasional Wednesday game. So it was literally if I didn't stop myself, there's times when I could be at a Tuesday through Sunday schedule.
Yeah.
And there is a time when it's just okay, so one of these is on the cusp here. I got, there's where is this really going anywhere? Are we just sitting here, not going anywhere? And sometimes it's just I used to play with a lot of random people. I would play with, I go to like people's houses at random. Meetup.com was kind of like how I infiltrated different cities. So when I went to my first city outside of when I went to Cincinnati, like I used it to infiltrate Cincinnati, and then I used it to infiltrate Phoenix, and that's how I met, like, found the DM's happy hour, and like met all these people that kind of propelled me through the rest of this time. But like I would just like, I think it was like a 2-year chunk where I was playing Edge of the Empire at somebody's house, like just like, I don't talk to any of those people anymore. Occasionally I see the couple that we played with every once in a while. I don't know if they are still pissed at me for not going back, even though the game had kind of wound down. There's this like, I'm just like, I would just play anywhere, anytime, like, people's houses that were this close to being crack dens. Like, it's just like, but there is a time when it's just like, okay, I can't be with this group anymore, or I can't do this game anymore, or whatever it is. But there is a limit, but it's pretty high.
Yeah. And what a like pre-pandemic type life is that you would just go to strangers' houses with other people, and you would sit in person with them across from a table from them and play. And I think that that's one of the things, another thing I've heard a lot is the pandemic just killed people's ability to play, because there are a lot of people who do not like playing online. They just don't like, or they cannot sit and do this, and play games that way. So a lot of people ended up hanging up the dice bag because of this. They can't do it online.
Ben
Darrel,
Bailey, our good friend Ben Bailey, former host, is like, yeah, I just can't get into it. And I totally understand, because the medium of video, even because most people were even playing audio only. And that just hurts. Like I can't, audio only is real hard. I mean, when we used to record the show without video, like that was like a real, like, trying to not, I mean, we step on each other still, and I apologize continuously to everyone, but like, it's that like video, at least you can get their expression, when they're making it, but it's still, there's something about the depth that is sort of missing.
It's still different. Yeah. It's not the same as being in person. We used to record Memory Alpha audio only. Like we wouldn't do that. Yeah. So that was really interesting. We just started doing video probably this season, really. So it hasn't been that long at all that we've been doing video. It was audio only, and that was tough. And I can see why people would not decide to continue with gaming if that was the fact. So Darrel, you had mentioned before that you have a really hard time doing online gaming.
Yeah, and it's I was thinking about that, that I did online games after my first Gen Con, because I met some of the East Coast Wrecking Crew people, Jared and Corey was local at the time. Now she's, I don't know where she's at, but we had a lot of fun gaming, and I really loved gaming with them. So I was like, well, we got to keep this going. We got to have some fun. So we did it. We did a few sessions of Vampire. We did a few sessions. I ran the best game I've ever run online. Had a good time. And I've just now kind of been thinking about that in the last couple minutes now. But I think what's changed for me is that I love the idea of sitting around a table with friends, and just the socialization is what's lacking in so many of our lives right now. But in addition to that, my job changed, because I used to be on my feet, processing parts in and out of chemical tanks all day long, and coming home and sitting down and looking at my computer was my break. Now my job is 90% sitting down, looking at my computer, doing meetings, doing paperwork review and things on the computer all day. So the idea of doing that for 9 hours, coming home and sitting down for another 4 on a weekend or something like that, it's daunting. And
a lot of people ended up working from home and using Zoom and things like that. So you use it for work meetings all day, and then you have to get on and play games that way too, so it's just mixing the work with that. I can see why that would drive someone away too. Yes, Richard.
I think a lot of people think that their online sessions have to be as long as their in-person sessions, and
ours aren't.
I know, but that absolutely should not be. Yeah. It's really like 2 hours, 3 hours max, Like, you know, you got to kind of adjust for, there's going to be still that bullshit time, right? At the beginning, there's still going to be that 15 minutes to half hour of bullshit. And sometimes it'd be like, hey, everybody come early so we can bullshit and then start. But like, you know, like it is draining, like doing this show, like after I'm finished with this show, like I'm like, you know, it's like we do play for hours with my one group, but there's so many people that sometimes you can like kind of like hang back and you're not doing anything.
Your break.
You're getting a break, baby. You're not even paying attention to what's going, and you should be paying attention, but paying attention fully for that amount of time is just a massive drain just to try and pay attention. So,
and there are groups that they are totally fine getting online and playing for 4 hours, 5 hours or whatever. I would have a hard time with that, but there are groups that do that, and that's awesome. But if you are not that person and that's the only thing available to you, then it would be tough to keep going. Like, I can see why it would be a big bummer and someone might decide that the gaming's not so much for them if that was the only way they could do it. Also, Richard, you were talking about when you're planning out your week with the Mrs. Buzzkill, the lovely Mrs. Buzzkill. Yes. Your family obligations. I mean, if you're gaming every night of every week, or even with me, my schedule is literally every other Wednesday night is the only night I don't have something planned. And most of it is gaming oriented or podcasting oriented. So that makes it really difficult when I have people that I would actually like to see and hang out with and spend time with. I don't have like a family. I mean, I have my family, but I'm not like married with kids or whatever. So I don't have those types of obligations. But when you have a wife that would probably really like to see you, that's probably difficult in some ways.
Well, she's more upset about me going into work than actually play. Oh. Because I'm here, right? If I'm playing at home, like online, like I'm here, she can yell up the stairs and hey, I need something, and I can go help her. But like, you know, before the pandemic, there were times when, yes, I would have like games at people's houses for like 4 or 5 days straight, and I would be out. But like, there, you know, it just depends on, you know, people's schedules. But, you know, we've got the cat, so like it's kind of relatively easy, and you know, I spend a lot of time with her when I'm not gaming. So. But it's not like I'm a complete shitheel, but you know, everybody's got their own things. So, you know, I always make sure that everything's cool in the gang. So before I decide to add something else to the schedule, if it's reoccurring, sometimes I forget that people tell me things, but
it happens. Like my calendar on my phone is just so like, it has to be laid out or I will absolutely forget. So, yeah, but there's family obligations. There's people that depend on you for things sometimes, you know, so that can be tricky to try and balance that with your gaming schedule too. So I can see why. And you have that whole pressure of growing up. Have you guys heard that or gotten that at all? Is that like, oh, you still get together with your friends and play D&D? How quaint. Have you gotten that at all?
I've never experienced anybody telling me to feel that way, but as I approach 40, I'm starting to analyze all the things that I do and every time like I think about it for 2 or 3 seconds and then I'm just like, fuck that. No. This is fun and I'm having fun. And when I was 18, all I wanted was time and money. And I have some of either and both not together ever at the same time. But 18-year-old me is like, oh, if I could just afford the new hotness, if I could just get that new book or whatever, and now I can. So I can buy all the books. It's just trying to find the time to play. But that's cool when you can get your friends to be the ones that you play with and your significant others to be the ones that you play with. It's all groovy. So
yeah.
I've never had that pressure. Like, because I mean, I could sort of understand it if there are certain situations I could see getting into where it might be difficult to continue and therefore you have to kind of grow up. But like
if you have the obligations like we were talking about earlier, you
right.
know,
Kids, like that. You know, kids' health, all that. Like, you know, but yeah, I've always had like, we're kind of privileged that like, that we have time for this, right? Because like there's a lot of people that just don't have time, and I understand time is because role playing is such a inexpensive hobby in comparison to a lot of hobbies, and I have a lot of hobbies.
Did you say inexpensive?
Inexpensive compared to a lot of hobbies.
Okay, yeah.
Because all you need
can be not though.
It cannot be. I mean, testament to my bookshelf behind me.
That's why I was like, did you just say inexpensive?
Yes, because realistically, if you're gonna be a player, right? I mean, realistically, you need paper, pencils, and dice. Right? You don't need the book. You don't need anything else. You can just play with that. And I know people that just play that way. Yeah. And it can be compared to like miniature gaming where you're spending 50, 60, you're spending $1,000 to build a thing before you can even start, and hundreds of hours before you can do a thing, right? Where in RPGs it can be, but just the time to be able to like sit down around a table and not have anything else going on. Just having those few hours can be excruciatingly difficult. And I can certainly understand if you have all those other things impinging upon your time, like sometimes it just gets squeezed out and you're like, man, I really would like to do that, but like, I just can't. And I feel very privileged to be able to do that. But I've never had this like lack of time for that sort of thing. So,
yeah. Well, and so, specifically talking about growing older, when I go to the game store, one of the best things that I see is the variety of people there. And there's younger kids there who are hanging out and borrowing books and getting their Cheeto dusted fingers all over my newest book. But there's older people there playing, there's younger people, there's everybody in between. Gaming as a hobby is that like we're in such a sweet spot where it's not weird to be the old guy playing, it's not uncool to be the young kid playing. So right now is the one time that I think in all of history that it's cool to be any age and playing a game. So anybody who's telling you to grow up and not play anymore, just
they can get fucked.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and I think that my experience with it has basically been and I normally would say get fucked with a pineapple, and I can't say that anymore.
Right. See pre-show.
Pre-show conversation. Yes. So my experience with that is just like really? You play D&D? Like, aren't you a little old for that? It's with people who aren't involved in the hobby, and they're people who are going to be judgmental about it regardless. So that's probably where our experiences on that differ a little bit then.
Yeah, because like whenever somebody finds out that I play role-playing games, it's almost always like a fascination of like, really, you play role-playing games? Like you play D&D? I was like, yeah. And I do a podcast, and I start, a guy at work that sits across from me now, he's like, so what's a role-playing game? So then I'm doing a 10-minute, 20-minute, like explaining to him what a role-playing game, because he didn't quite get like one person is the game master, and he didn't get the whole thing at all. And he's like, oh, wow, that sounds really interesting. Like I don't know if he said, it's like, cause it's still such a foreign concept to even, people that have lived their entire life through this renaissance, that a lot of people, but I expect that is something to do with like, I look like a guy that plays role-playing games.
I was gonna say that's what I've been chomping at the bit, waiting for you to like give me a moment to jump in and say, Richard, nobody is surprised to hear that you play role-playing games.
Yeah,
and especially at work, they hear our conversations.
Well, yeah, there's some that like we literally do our story workshop when we used to have lunch together with a bunch of other engineers, and they would just like sit back and go, what the fuck are you talking about? Like
a bunch of engineers are like, you guys are nerds.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I definitely get that. Like, no, I definitely get the nerd shaming from engineers who should know better. But I can understand that there's an expectation for someone that looks like me versus someone that looks like you that's different. That's unfortunate that it's just this perception thing. We could get into like the gender and all the other stereotypes that like culminate into that person that says, you play role-playing games still? Versus, oh yeah, of course. Yeah. It's like, oh, you're doing the most nerdy thing I can think of. Oh, well, clearly. Like, I just break their minds because I have long hair now. It's just
yeah. It's weird. My hair's longer too. So yes. Yeah. It's that COVID pandemic hair. Okay, so
kind of long too. For anybody listening to this and not seeing the visual, long, luxurious locks. That's how I want you all to picture me.
Yes, Darrel with the good hair.
Samson-like, yeah.
Right. So, let me ask you this then. When it comes to all of the, so fun fact about Ashley, by the way, just an aside real quick. I had COVID back in December, and ever since then, my brain will randomly forget words. So instead of actually knowing the word, I have to play like charades and explain what it is I'm thinking about and hope you guys figure out the word that I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so, please.
So demands. I got it. Yay. All the demands on your time and everything like that as an adult that might lead someone to exit the gaming community. What are your thoughts on retiring versus taking a break? Because sometimes it's just I need a couple months off of this campaign. That happened with one of our campaigns recently that I'm in. We haven't played together for a couple months, and it's actually, we still are in contact and we try and do different games online together. But what are your thoughts on taking a break versus fully retiring? Do you think that that's something that would be valuable? I think that would help with burnout. Like if you're burnt out, you can just take a little bit of a break. Or if it's something where it's just a temporary, I have something going on and I can't do this for right now. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think you can take a break and jump right back in if you're in a long-term campaign? It's like a long-term relationship, long-term campaign, LTC.
Yeah. From my personal experience, taking a break is valid and you can always jump back in. I've had a number of hobbies through the years that I've jumped into wholeheartedly. I've got probably $4,000 in armor and weapons in my garage that I haven't touched in years. I'd still love to get back into doing medieval combat. That'd be awesome. But gaming is an easier one because I don't need to be physically conditioned to do it. I can just sit down at the table and keep going again. But in all things in life, I've been on a fitness journey for 3 years now and getting myself back to healthy and getting good again. And through that, I used to get really frustrated in the beginning because I bought rollerblades and I would go out and rollerblade. And at first I could make it to the end of the block, which is less than a quarter of a mile. And I would just be gassed out, take them off, walk home in my socks, crawl up the stairs, too tired to do anything. And I asked a friend of mine who he was one of my former teachers, Dave Vito. He's also a fantastic musician, Dave Vitaliano. Go ahead. Good luck spelling that. But he's a really cool guy, and I asked him, I was like, dude, I'm having some issues, I'm gassing out, I have to take a break every 10 minutes, and he's like, dude, take breaks. Taking a break is valid. Take a break and then get back to it. And I've used that as a mantra in so much of my life that it's okay to step away for a minute if you need to. It's gonna be there. Your friends are your friends, and they're gonna be back and playing at your table. COVID taught us that. My Monster Mondays group, bless them all for being patient through the pandemic, and then they were genuinely excited to come back. It was amazing. So take a break if you need to take a break. It's going to be there. That it's going to come back, and if you decide that you want to get back into gaming, it's going to be there. You're going to do it. And if you decide that you're going to move on to harvesting pineapples, go ahead. Whatever it is that floats your goat, it's going to be there for you when you get back. So take as many breaks as you need.
And I think my fear is the whole taking a break and then not coming back to it. You can have every intention of coming back to it. And then I've had campaigns where there was one that I was in. It was a 5e campaign. Beginning of the pandemic, we decided to stop meeting in person. There were too many of us to do it online. There were 8 people in this campaign. It was a fucking huge group. And it never picked back up again. It just kind of fizzled off. Everyone started to do other things. So we tried to just take a break, and it ended up we never came back to it, which I think happens too. And I think the fear of doing that might keep people from taking that break as well.
Yeah. Well, you and Richard both have a lot of experience with longer campaigns, whereas I don't. Everything that I've done has been based on hearing that experience and that fear. And so everything I generate now is a shorter arc. It's going to be a couple of months worth of story, and then cut it off naturally before it can get stale. So that's another way you can avoid burnout.
Yeah, I think it's important to I think in today's time, with time being so in demand, even in COVID, right? There was a time period where everybody was at home and no one was doing anything, and all the time you could just start games all over the place and then nobody finished them. Because we had a lot of that on the Discord of people trying to start games and it didn't really. But I think breaks are important. I think trying to design or even setting out for longer, even if you want to do a longer campaign, saying okay, we're going to try and end this story arc or whatever in so many sessions, right? Because there is a point in which people kind of lose interest, even if they're still fully in. Yeah. And I've definitely seen that kind of happen in games where we started out at the beginning of the pandemic on my Saturday game, where we had 8 people, one of them was game master. So we had 7 players. And it, over time, there are people that have slowly kind of weaned away, and now we're trying to figure out we're playing tiny dungeons, and it's kind of being kind of hard to get everybody in one spot at one time.
Yeah.
So, but I did get to play Brindlewood Bay. Taking breaks, playing other smaller games. Brindlewood Bay is a weird game where you're playing basically Murder, She Wrote is this comfy mystery game. So I'm playing a little old lady who solves mystery, who's a former nurse that's vaguely based on my grandmother. I had to but it was amazing. It was awesome. We only had a couple players and we played Brindlewood Bay. It's kind of Powered by the Apocalypse-esque. And, but if a game goes on for a while, it may be good to even schedule in, hey, in 5 weeks, we're going to play, Apocalypse World. We're going to do a one-shot Apocalypse World, or it's going to be an ongoing, but it's going to be every 5 weeks. We're going to play one episode of Apocalypse World or whatever. Versus retiring, when you get to the end of your rope, or that time is taken up by somebody else, at some extent, I'm kind of retired as a photographer. I still love photography. I still have all my equipment. I just moved to a city that I kind of find ugly. So it's sort of hard to get out and get motivated to take pictures of buildings, because that was my favorite thing, was kind of cool, interesting buildings. And Phoenix is kind of an ugly town for that. So there's not the motivation's not there. Plus there's this whole Instagram, I got a camera in my pocket. I still know how to take a picture. I still do some of that, but it's not to the level of I'm dragging out my giant DSLR. It's I'm not dragging out my giant trad game anymore. I'm just got my one little one sheet game. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not really fully retired, but it's feels like I'm retired comparatively.
Yeah.
So.
And we do that with our Pathfinder campaign, because we've been going for over 3 years on my Pathfinder first edition campaign. And we will do that where every once in a while, just the GM needs a break from GMing, or we just need something different, the flavor of something different for a minute. And so we have one player who will just do a one shot. And it's always kind of a good way for us to still get together and hang out and play, because we like each other a lot. We have a lot of fun together, but we just need something a little different. And to that point, what about retiring a character? Because that happened in this campaign as well. One of our players just wanted something different. Instead of dropping out of the campaign, she just made a new character. So we wrote her character off, and she rolled up a new character, and now she's getting to play in the campaign still, and we still keep going with it. So she's not retiring from it, she's not leaving it, but she's getting this whole new experience because she's getting to play it through this other character now. So have you ever done that? Do you think that that's a valid way to deal with burnout, is just doing something different?
I think so. I had, even in we did that Eternal Lies game over the pandemic, and I had it was I had a cop character. I was playing a detective. Like, she wasn't doing cop things. She was just being an investigator. But there was a point in which, like, besides the fact that I sort of had this kind of ethical dilemma that I had not realized because I am privileged enough to not have to realize that, but also it was just like the character had mentally gone to a place that was hard to be in, even. So, like, when you're inhabiting characters, if it's hard to be in a character, that can really also be a drain. So I think, realizing that retiring a character is a perfectly legitimate thing. Like, characters on TV shows get replaced all the time. Like, it was a thing, it's less of a thing now because of shorter seasons, but like, people just get replaced, and with a different character that kind of fits in the same spot, but maybe a completely different person. So I think it's a good way to kind of keep things lively. I haven't done it that often. Actually, I did it in my first game, in my first D&D game. I retired my dwarf and I played a rogue instead, because I was like, oh, I know more about this, so I'm going to play a rogue. And I think having a different control panel, a different space to inhabit, can refresh things a bit.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're starting to get to that point where you're burned out, I think that shows in your character as you're playing too. Because when you're saying that character kind of gets to a place where it's hard to exist in that character, I mean, you're the one playing that character. So there's a very solid chance that your mental space that you're in is what's reflecting through that character. So sometimes it's for the best to maybe tuck away that character sheet for a little bit and bring something else out. So, Darrel, I know that you were saying you hadn't really been in many long campaigns, but what are your thoughts on retiring a character versus just leaving the game?
I think if your characters are surviving that long, then your GM isn't working hard enough to murder them. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And second, I'm the convention GM, so shorter arcs and murdering the fuck out of people is what I do. I love to hear those heartwarming stories of characters with really long arcs. I love to hear in one of your games you were talking about a character who'd been with them for a while in the party, and you had like an in-game funeral for the character. It's beautiful and wonderful to hear. It's just not something I've ever had the chance to experience, but I agree with everything y'all are saying, that if you need to retire a character, if it's time, then switch it up. Or maybe their crazy yokel half-brother cousin dad comes in for a minute and gives you some comic relief. It's when you think about old television shows and the things they used to do to keep season 7 of Happy Days going, jump that shark, go nuts.
Yes.
Blaze of glory, try something new and different and weird, and then, if it's time to give it up, then you do the cool goodbye episode. But sometimes that works. Sometimes you revive it and you get the cool spin-offs. So.
And that actually brings up another thing that I was thinking is, if you as a player decide you are going to retire from gaming, so either for any of the reasons we've listed, whether it's you're just totally burned out, you don't want to just retire your character, you just want to be done, you don't have time, whatever. How would you go out? Would you want to go out in like a blaze of glory? Would you want to just like ghost and stop coming? Or how would you handle that? Because a blaze of glory would be amazing. I would like everything I had ever done to try and keep my character safe would be out the window. I would just be like, yes, let me fight this dragon one-on-one. You know what I mean? Like, I would just want to go out with, sword blazing, or I guess Warhammer blazing, because that's what I have for my dwarf. So, yes.
So in preparation for the last one where we misunderstood this, I watched the movie of Dice and Men that you recommended.
Yes.
And I have to say that I really loved the solution. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that's going to watch that movie because it is
Please watch that
amazing.
movie. It's so good. It's called Of Dice and Men. I think it's on Amazon Prime. But
I think I found it on YouTube. I don't know
Did
if
you?
it's still up there,
Okay.
but yeah,
So good.
It's a good movie, and I want to go out like that they did. I want that
Yeah.
blaze of glory. I want something crazy and epic and memorable for my friends to remember me. If that's either me as a character or me as a player bowing out, I want to make it memorable. I never want to just like pod fade or ghost.
Yeah.
I want it to be cool. I want a monument to be erected in my friends' memories. Oh, that's the other one. She Kills Monsters. Really good play. I saw right after a friend of mine passed away that your friends live on forever in your stories. So yeah, I want to be that. I want to be that legendary story that people are telling many, many years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be big in my book. But you know what? It's your comfort level. If you're just wanting to walk away, then that's valid too. I'm never going to tell anybody how to play their game. For me personally, I want fire. I want it all just burning and something horrible unleashed that players are going to have to deal with for a long time to come.
As you're like, bye, like you're out, and now they have to deal with this.
Cthulhu,
Like,
goodbye, y'all.
Yep.
Peace among worlds, by the way.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I had a friend in one of my campaigns that is very Irish goodbye. You know what I mean? Like she's very much the type that would just fade out and decide not to come anymore. So that's for her. That's just who she is as a player and as a person. But for me, it would absolutely be Blaze of Glory. Richard, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was going to say I've done all these things. I've done the Blaze of Glory. I've done the. Sorry, I can't. I'm too busy. I can't come back to this game. Like, and there most of the times that was true. But I dearly love a lot of games now in the story game is a lot of it is you can't die unless you want to die. Kind of a lot of these story games. And I really love pulling that card. People are like, what? Wait, you're going to kill your character. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to kill my character. And I'm going to do it this way. And it's either going to be heart-wrenching or it's going to be speed metal in the background, full nitrous, pedal to metal, like all the way to where we're driving the nuke right into the base of the tower. Like I know we just got on a list. Thanks, Tom from the FBI. Sure. Please like and subscribe, give us a review on iTunes. But I have done all these things with my characters and it has been, the going out, not necessarily a blaze of glory, but in an emotional method is one of
something big. Yes.
Something big, something, making the ultimate sacrifice, making people like really remember it has been a hell of a lot of fun. And then make a new character or we've moved on from that game. But like when I can hear the speed metal in the back of my mind, like, and I'm just like, this is what I'm doing and this is what's happening. It's just, some of the best gaming of all time.
Oh, for sure. And if you're over it and you're over the game, you're over your character, whatever, I think that shows in how you're playing your character. So it's one of those things where you either die a hero or play long enough to become the villain. Like you're going to end up kind of dragging everything down if not. So why not just ride the nuke all yeehaw motherfucker into whatever, Yeah, absolutely.
I want to revise my answer. I want to be the villain in somebody's game when I leave.
Yeah.
That's what I want now.
Well, if you're summoning an old one and then leaving, that makes you the villain in my eyes. That's like yes, I'm going to summon this thing and then I'm going to peace out and you guys are going to have to deal with it. That's
cultist goodbye.
Yeah.
Generally, if an old
goodbye.
Cultist goodbye. Generally, if an old one shows up, the game is over. Like there's no, you get to be the villain of the game until an old ancient god shows up, and then basically the game is over. Like I don't know how you
take your ball and go home.
Yeah, like
switch over to the end of the World Series. Good
right.
Game series.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. Well, that's all I have for that. I feel like we made some good points on why someone might retire and how to do it if you did. I personally, I'm in Richard's camp where it's so much of my life now that I don't know what I would do if I hung up the dice bag and left role playing, because it's so much of my time and my energy and just kind of who I am at this point is gaming. So I don't foresee that. There may come a day when I need to, and I will absolutely go out in a blaze of glory in some way. But until that day, today is not that day. And until that day, I'm going to keep playing. So do you guys have any other thoughts while we wrap up?
Today is a good day to throw dice.
Yes, it is.
No, wait.
All right.
We screwed that up. Anyway.
We may need to make that a t-shirt, even if it's the wrong saying, but I'll see if I can, what Photoshop has for me for those fonts. Anyways. But yeah, I think, if you need to bow out, bow out, but we're always going to be here for you. Please, please never think that door is closed if you have to go that way. Please come back. Even if you felt like that door was closed and somehow you're hearing my voice, you're still listening to us. Because I would like to have as many people, as long as they're not chuds, come on board.
There's a qualifier in that.
And reformed chuds, it's possible. There are people that have come back, changed their minds on some things. So and the redemption arc is also a valid way of going out. So for any villain, you can always have the redemption arc. So
retire if you need to, take a break if you need to, but you can always come back.
Yes.
My last thought, if you plan on retiring, let me know. I'll buy your books.
Yeah, don't let Bookman's or eBay the siren call of those things. The books are important. Give them to someone that will love them.
Get a good home for them.
So
awesome. Okay, well, Richard, do you want to talk about the reviews a little bit?
Yes. I looked at the reviews. We haven't had a review since March or so on iTunes. So hey, if you are sitting there listening and thought that was a fantastic conversation, give us an iTunes review or a review on some other service and just tell us about it, because we'll read them. Even if you think that was a shitty conversation, go review it somewhere and tell us. Okay. It's very important to put your opinion about the show out there so that other people can find it, because without the patrons, we would be on a windless sea adrift without their love. But without reviews to as our North Star for other people to find us, this tortured analogy brought to you by Patreon. Please, and let us know if you review us on any podcatcher or whatever. And let us know.
Podbean has reviews.
Podbean has reviews. Podcast Addict has reviews. I'm sure that all the other services do. Let us know what you think. Some way. Even if it's privately. Say, hey, I don't know about this show anymore. Reach out. We got a new email because the old email's connected to Brendan. So the new email is fullmetalrpgbiz@gmail.com. So if you want to reach out to us privately, go ahead and check, type in fullmetalrpgbiz, B-I-Z, @gmail.com, and send us a note, good, bad, or indifferent. Let us know you're out there, because as much as we like this back of the game store conversation, we do enjoy a little feedback on that.
If I'm too chipper for you, let us know for sure.
And then we will put up the middle fingers and say peace among worlds to you bitches. So,
but yes, we do want to know what you think of the show. We're here to listen to feedback, and we will take it into consideration regardless of what it is.
Yes.
So. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope to see you in 2 weeks when we do this again. Until then, have fun playing games.
Rah.